An infinite consciousness is what Lao Tzu called the Tao, what the Hindus call Brahman, what we call God or divine mind. It is that which always is, always was, and always will be. It is beginningless and endless. Just as space is the closest approximation to understanding this thing called infinite consciousness, which is what you are. Just as space is unconcerned with all of the clouds that manifest within it. The dark clouds, the light clouds, the fluffy clouds, the cirrus clouds, the cumulus clouds, the stratus clouds. Oh, I remember those from junior high school. It doesn't make any difference. The space just doesn't care. Come, show up in this space and go away in this space. Show up, leave, come and go. This is how space works. And then there's infinite consciousness, which is an approximation of space. And just as space is unconcerned with the clouds that manifest within it, so too is infinite consciousness unconcerned with anything that manifests within it. Come into it, show up into it, it will always be there. And that infinite consciousness is the impersonal life speaking to us, allowing everything to take place in our lives. Every thought that we have, every desire that we have, every burning desire that we have that says, I must be this, I have to go this way. I remember Abraham Maslow speaking to us when I was a young doctoral student, say, self-actualizing people are people who must be what they can be. They must be what they can be. That is, they have something inside of them that the lightness that you feel, the light that you feel, folks, you are light. As I was reading Vasista's Yoga, The Impersonal Life, Larry Dossey's beautiful book called One Mind, studied it, called him up, put him on my radio show so we could talk about this idea of non-local, impersonal life inside, that's in each and every one of us, that we're always connected to, that's always speaking to us, that's always directing us to go one place to another. And then one day, in reading I think it was Larry's book, he mentions the life and teachings of the masters of the Far East. 6 volumes, written back in 1894, that took place in 1894. A group of people went to the Himalayas and lived with the masters, people who were considered to be masters, people who had divine consciousness, people who were able to do things that we've never even imagined ourselves doing, people who had these God-realized abilities. And one of the things they say in there is that the actual process of the body is a constant state of just replacing older cells with newer cells. They say in there that there's not one body on this planet that's more than 7 years old, because every cell that you have constantly is repeating itself, but an old cell isn't replaced with an old cell. An old cell is replaced with youth, a young cell, constantly taking place. Metaphysically, there's absolutely no reason for this aging process to take place. We have new cells, youthful cells, constantly there, but our collective consciousness has said, this is the way it always looks. But these people didn't look that way. I start reading those and studying them and trying to understand them and being wowed and amazed by them. Calling up my kids and saying, you got to hear this. This is unbelievable. This is what we're capable of, what we can manifest, what we can create for ourselves in our life. You all have it within you.
My teacher in India a few years back was asked a question by one of his devotees, where does everything come from? And his response was, where does your question come from? It is from the same no place, the same place that has no boundaries and no form. And it is that spiritual element that all things emanate from. we become what we think about all day long.
The incredible power of passion and enthusiasm. And when you get it in your hearts, and my objective in the short time that I have here with you today is to convey that to you. What you need, what you're supposed to do, how it will work out, what financing is required, what people you'll need, what circumstances you will need to align with the stars or whatever, all will be taken care of if you stay with your passion. And I'd like to suggest to you that whatever your passion is, and even if you don't know what it is, whatever the feeling you have inside of you that says to you, this is what you're here for, you have to do this, as absurd as it may sound, as ridiculous as it may appear to everyone in your environment, including your husband and your children and your wife and your ex-wife and your grandchildren and your neighbors and the people you work with and the people you encounter everywhere you go. It may sound like the most absurd thing for someone of your age at this time, given these circumstances of your life, to be even contemplating something so crazy, whatever it might be. And yet, if you can hold on to the passion, just hold on to that. Hold on to the passion. What you're doing when you're holding on to the passion is you're holding on to God. Because the word enthusiasm and passion are the same. And theos from the Greek is God. Yasm means within. Enthusiasm is the God within you. The God within you. And this voice, if you read the 10 Secrets for Success and Inner Peace I put out for my children several years ago, I wrote it for my teenagers because I put down in there the 10 most significant and important ideas that I thought they should know long after I was gone. One of those ideas was the second one. It's called Don't Die with Your Music Still in You. That you came here with music to play. So not dying with your music still in you is a very important idea. It's one of 10 that I carried with me for a long time and wrote it so that they would have it and be able to read that and know what I was speaking about. But beyond that is something that I have come to know, and that is when you have that passion and you hang on to it, and you don't let any obstacle come in your way, you're hanging on to God. And another synonym for God is love, right out of the New Testament. God is love. And he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in me, and I in him. So now we're looking at enthusiasm being something, or passion being something that relates to your staying connected to a field of energy that is dominated by something called love, and that is God itself. And we all have this wonderful choice as we come into this world, and the choice is whether we're going to stay aligned with that or not. I got this idea, and I never know where the next thing is going to come from, and it's why I say to you with absolute certainty, when you have the passion, just the presence of the passion and nothing more, that's all you need, just the presence of it, is a guarantee for you that you have the capacity to manifest it, attract it, and create it in whatever form you would like it to show up, just because you have the passion, because it's a knowing within you. And when you stay with it and align yourself with it, the book you have to write, the music you have to create, the artwork that you have to do, the child that you absolutely must adopt, the business that you have to open up someplace out there that no one else understands or grasps, the thing that won't go away, when you keep it there, when you stay aligned with it, and you keep that alignment in harmony with God, with Spirit, whatever you need will begin to show up. The problem with most of us is that as it begins to show up, we then institute the thing that keeps us from formalizing and manifesting and creating the destiny that we signed up for. Things like doubts. Shakespeare said, our doubts are our traitors. These are traitors. These are things that we live with and we hang on to and we spout and we talk about, and we don't realize that in just the most innocuous and innocent of ways, we are keeping ourselves from a destiny that we signed up for long before we ever entered into this world of form.
Sometimes it's in the most mundane of things that we do that we find the greatest teachings come to us. I don't know if you've ever read any of Thich Nhat Hanh's Mindfulness, that they would teach the Buddhists who were in the kitchen, to be able to take a plate and to just, in the washing of the plate and in the drying of the plate and the putting it down, working in the kitchen, that if you're in a state of mindfulness, that you can find your connection to God, you can find enlightenment, you can find complete peace, just total serenity in just this simple act of washing a dish and so on. So that it's the line from the Way of the Peaceful Warrior. I don't know if you've read Dan Millman's wonderful book. And there's a teacher in there, and I'll just very briefly sketch it. There's a man who's a teacher's name, and he's called Socrates. And Socrates is teaching Dan, who is actually was a gymnast, like an Olympic level gymnast, and was trying to teach him. He said, you have to go out and sit on a rock and don't come back and come off of that rock, no matter how long you stay there, until you have, until you can say something that's really significant, really relevant. It has to be really important. And he would go away and he'd come back and he'd say something. He'd say, no, that's not it. And he'd come back and he'd sit there for hours and hours and he'd come back and he would say something to Socrates. Socrates says, no, that's not relevant. So no consequence what you're saying whatsoever. And then after like 24 hours of doing this, finally, what came to him, and he came to Socrates and he said to him, I think I've found something that is truly significant. I've really reached truth. And he said, what is it? And he said, there are no ordinary moments. Mm. There are no ordinary moments. Like this whole concept of ordinary is like, and to recognize that extraordinariness is in every single thing that you do. That's my first thought about it. That self-actualizing people, according to Maslow, said that they see, they see the unfolding of God in everything and everyone that they encounter, whatever it may be. Walking in an airport and the person, standing in line ahead of you. That can be like one of the truly insightful moments in your life. In the book that I just finished writing, that I spent like 3 months writing every single day, I can see clearly now. I realized that some of the most significant turning points in my life occurred in what I would have called ordinary moments, before. And now I realize that there's absolutely no ordinary moments, that God is in everything. There's no place that God is not. And it's being able to be in that place. And then you get guided. And I simply was guided that if you really want to heal yourself, here's a little piece of advice for you. I studied the life of St. Francis. You heard me talking earlier in the show about St. Francis.
Oh, yeah.
St. Francis, when you read the stories of St. Francis and who he was, and you read the stories of Jesus, and you read the stories of Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa said that every day I see Jesus Christ in all of his distressing disguises. And I would think about that when you think about, the things, like even doing this radio show for me. I've been doing this show now for 7 or 8 years every Monday. And, you would think, well, this is just another one of those, quote, mundane chores that I have to do. I have to set aside this hour every Monday. And I have to go in and I have to sit in a room and I have to clear the house so that none of my kids are around and there's no noise. I have to make sure that, and there's so many other things that would be easier for me to do, just to be outside. My family's here now and so on. But it's probably the most inspiring hour I have every single week, just talking to people like yourself and, from all over the world. And sometimes I put the phone down at the end of the hour and I have tears going down my throat. And I thought, this is just like, it's just a little radio show. You're just doing call-in radio show. That means you've been doing this forever, this kind of thing. And yet, some of the greatest insights that I've had and feelings of, it's like, because like self-actualization really boils down to surrender. Mm. Truly, it's surrender, which means just like letting, what they say in the recovery movement, it's like just letting go and letting God direct your life. And it's about service. And it's about the other thing that Dan Millman wrote about in The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. It's about recognizing that there are no ordinary moments. There is no such thing. It's like when my kids say I'm bored and all of this, it's not possible. There's no such thing as boredom. for a self-actualized person, you know. There's no such thing as mundane. There's no these things that you are doing. Begin to be so conscious of what it is that you're doing each and every day, whatever it is. If you're sitting at your desk and just writing, instead of just making that a routine, you know, finding the spirit and finding a way to just surrender and to finding a way to be of service, Karen. It's about being of service, you know, and it's available to you at all times. Within one block of where everybody who's listening to me right now, wherever you are in the world, within a block or two of where you are living, there's somebody who could use your help. You know, there's somebody there who you could go read to, or that you could take a gift to, or you could just smile towards, or you could help clean up their house. Or something that I learned from Neville, who was a man who lived in the early part of the last century. He was born in the early part of the last century. He died in 1972. And he was an itinerant lecturer and lectured all over the country and so on, and just talked about how to manifest and how to attract things into your life and so on. And he's the one that said, you do not attract what you want in life, you attract what you are. And the way that you do it, he said, is that you assume, this is really important words I'm about to give you, you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That is, if you want your future dream to be a present fact, if you want your future dream to be a present fact, you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. So you go into your mind and why this works and how it works is that as you go in your imagination and imagine what it is that you would like, and then you go to the feeling and what that feels like in your body, as you do that, the reason that prosperity and abundance and jobs and things like that will start to show up for you is that when you go to that feeling of feeling good, that's the same as saying you feeling God. So feeling good and feeling God are the same thing. And in fact, the only thing that differentiates them is a zero, good and God, just one little O. Right. And then as you get to this place of feeling good, even if you look around and nothing that you want is working out, let's say you're sick and your illness doesn't go away, or let's say you're in a relationship that isn't working and you're depressed and things aren't working out the way you want, or the money isn't coming up, you still have your imagination. You still have your ability to think the thoughts that you want to think. And so in your imagination, you start using your imagination, because, I mean, Einstein said that imagination is everything. So that in your mind, as you go to this place and seeing what outcome do you want, and just get a picture of it, no matter how bleak things look around you. And then as you do that, as you go to this wonderful place within you where everything is working out, then you experience the feeling of that. What does that feel like in your body? What does it feel like? It feels good. And as soon as you then go to a state of feeling good, you now are aligned with God, how God works. God is feeling good and feeling God are the same thing. So now you're aligned. Now what happens is your subconscious mind, the place within you where so much of the things that happen for you just happen without you being conscious of it, your subconscious mind can't make a distinction between whether something is happening really in your life or whether it's just going on in your imagination, and it goes by the feeling. So the key thing here is then the last 5 minutes of the day, as you're going off to sleep at night and you're in your bed, instead of reviewing all the things that make you feel bad and all the things that aren't working and make that the principal occupation of your mind, you're going back to the feeling of, you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You just keep assuming it, and then you go off to sleep. And now you got 8 hours. You got 8 hours of sleeping time for your mind to marinate in the same context with God. And then you begin to manifest. And lo and behold, the prosperity, the things begin to change. Your illness begins to go away. The relationship begins to work out the way you want. And, you're activating something very powerful within yourself. Because we go through our days, we go through our life, and we pay attention to what we see and what we touch and what we feel and what we smell, and that becomes our reality. And we think that that's the only reality that there is. If I can touch it, if I can see it, if I can grab a hold of it, I can smell it, then that makes it real. And if I can't, then it's unreal. And what this is really about is understanding the power of our imagination, so that when we put an let's just say you've got a cold or you've got a flu or something like that, and if you're putting into your imagination, I am well, I am perfect health, I am well, but you watch your nose and it sneezes and it's running and you got a fever and, you're tired and all of that, the concept of being able to say I am well and living from that place in your imagination, it's so foreign to us because we're just so convinced that what our senses tell us is the only reality that there is. And what this is really all about is being able to live from the end and put it into your imagination. And regardless of what your senses tell you, regardless of what it says on the internet, regardless of what information is people are sending to you, regardless of what it says on TV or articles that you read or whatever it is, whatever I am you would like to have, including I am prosperous, I am abundant, And you look at your bank book and you say there's nothing in it, and, and I've got bills, and how can I go around saying I am prosperous when these are all the... But it's being able to place into your imagination that I am, realizing that the words I am really are the name of God, and to say I am prosperous rather than I will be, because to say I will be prosperous or I will be healthy means to say that I don't have that now, and I don't, and it's something that maybe will come in the future. And until you can assume a feeling of something in your imagination and just live with it, regardless of what all of the other physical evidence says, because basically what we learn is that the physical world is just an illusion, that it's what's in our imagination that is the real, the real truth.
All things are possible. If you've been addicted to something for 20 years, if you've been overweight your whole life, if you've been poor your whole life, you've been saying, I am poor, I am fat, I am unworthy. You are using the name of God in vain. You must begin to say, I am healthy, I am happy, I am content, I am well-being, I am addiction-free, and be able to say it. Forget about what your senses tell you, you forget everything else. William Blake, the great poet, said, to see the world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wildflower, to hold eternity in the palm of your hand and infinity in an hour, we are all led to believe a lie when we see with, not through the eye, which was born in a night to perish in a night, while the soul slept in beams of light. The soul. When you align your soul with what wants to expand and not be held back, and push away all forces that will try to encumber you, will try to restrict you. Your soul is miserable when you're trying to live out somebody else's dharma, an idea of what you should be. You must be able to do it from within, and when you do, the most amazing things begin to happen. And there's an observation from the New Testament that says, in the presence of him whom he believed God, who gives life to the dead, and calls, and these are the most important words, I think, in Romans, the book of Romans 4:17, and calls these things which do not exist as though they did. This is the secret. This is what I've been reading about all day about time. You've got to be able to say not only that I am perfect health, I am well, I am prosperous, I am employed, I am whatever it is that if you would like to place into your imagination, you have to ignore everything that comes your way that conflicts with that, including your own senses. Most importantly, what your eyes and your ears and the reports tell you. You must be able to hold firm this idea and call things as God, and you are God, calls things which do not exist as though they did. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This is so significant because your feelings are beyond your intellect. Your feeling is what you experience in your body. And when you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are taking over your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is the mind that does 96 to 97% of everything that you do. How do you think you got here today? You got in your cars or you got on a plane and you drove here and you got, did you think about what you were doing when you were driving? Did you think I got to put my foot on the brake? I got to slow it down? You drive all over. You could drive all the way across the country and never have one conscious thought about it. Your conscious mind is used to program your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is amenable to suggestions. Your subconscious mind doesn't care whether you're right or wrong, whether it's good or bad. It only accepts everything that you place into it. Hey, I'm 71 years old. At the age of 18, I was in the Navy. They sent me to Bainbridge, Maryland, to become a radioman cryptographer. And for 3 weeks, my conscious mind was programmed for an hour a day to learn Morse code. And I sat in front of a typewriter and I did Morse code an hour a day. That was 51 years ago. I have never used Morse code since. My subconscious mind, after all these years that it was programmed, it's still doing the did-its, the dot-its, the dot-its. I can't get it out of there. Do you know how many did-its, dot-its, dot-its that you have? Here they are. I can't do this. I'm not very attractive. I'm not intelligent. I'm poor. I'm not allowed to have this. I'm not worthy of this. Did-it, dot-it, I can't make this thing happen. Did-it, I can't create miracles. Did-it, I can't get over a hill. Your subconscious mind has been programmed. It doesn't take very much to get it in there. Getting it out of there is like one of the most crucial things that you can do. You have to begin to pay attention to everything that comes at you that's involved with what's in your subconscious mind. I mean, Jill Clayburgh, the great actress, just passed away. She passed away from the same kind of leukemia that I have. I had about 11 different people send me a picture of her and tell me, she was younger than you. And is that what I want to hear? Is that what I want to program my subconscious mind to begin to believe? I'm watching TV and the newscaster, Brian Williams, is on there. He said, we're going away. We'll be right back. And when we come back, we're going to give the 10 early warning signs for Alzheimer's disease. Boy, that's what I want to write down. I want to make sure I carry those with. Do you ever walk into a room and forget what you walked in there for? I've been doing that since I was 12. Do I want to program your subconscious mind is always getting things thrown at it to take out of your consciousness the things that you have placed in there that you want to manifest and attract for yourself in your life. When you use the words I am, you are using the name of God. When you act and live from that place and call things that do not exist as if they did, and live from that and base how you feel and how your life is going on how you feel and your connection to God rather than on what somebody else tells you, you have had programmed into you about what can and can't happen. And the fact is, with God, all things are possible.
I just think that this is a universe that is on purpose. That's just one of the things that science teaches us and so on. And I don't really rely very much on science for what it is that I believe because science can, when we talk about whether this is, I'll hear people say, well, that's not evidence-based and so on. And we know that everybody who ever showed up here in this universe showed up exactly when they were supposed to, by the virtue of the fact that they did.
Right.
And we know that everybody that's in this universe that we've ever heard about has left it. That we notice that everything that's physical and material dematerializes. We know that. We watch our bodies go through that, and we watch, our homes go through that, and we watch the flowers go through. We watch everything go through that, and yet science can never give us an answer to the big questions about. What is that thing called non-being or spirit or formlessness or the Tao or God or spirit? What is that? I mean, the really great lessons of life. I mean, all of us are here. We're all walking around. We all talk. We all think, and we never stop to think that, that every thought that we have is invisible. You can't get a hold of it. You can't see it. You don't know where it came from. You don't know where it's going to go. And that's the real essence of where we live, isn't it? I mean, we live in a formless universe, and the form part of it, I mean, even in quantum physics, they teach us that it's the space between the particles, that makes everything happen. It's out of the void, but science can't explain the void. No one can explain the void. So you just have to go to something that I call your intuition. And as you become more, I just always liked Einstein's line about, learn to think like God thinks. That's all he wanted to do. And as you think, whatever the creative source of this universe is, I know that I came from it, because I'm in this world just like all the rest of us are. And so it seems to make sense to me that if I want to be able to be a part of the creative process and create the kind of life that I would like to create, that I have to act like that and think like whatever the creative source is, whatever you want to call it. God is fine for me, So it's like, to me, it's like acting like that. So how does creation take place? How do things happen? It isn't done violently. Like every morning, all of the flowers on the planet open up without any violence.
Right.
And the great wisdom that I've learned from the Tao Te Ching, for example, written 2,500 years ago. I mean, I think about what the world must have looked like 2,500 years ago. There was no running water, and people were living in caves, and it's like life expectancy was just a few years, and yet here there were people out out there, there were these great spiritual teachers who were writing down things that they didn't learn in school. They just, and they've survived for thousands and thousands of years. And I get the sense that it had to happen for a reason. As you're willing to go into the silence, as you're willing to get quiet, as you're willing to be, like I meditate a minimum of an hour every day. Most days it's at least 2 hours. And in that space, in that time of silence, sometimes I meditate when I'm in the ocean as well, but because I spend an hour or so a day in the ocean as well. But in those moments of just total pure silence, I get awarenesses and I connect to, I think that that's what God is. It's like Melville said it in Moby Dick, God's one and only voice is silence. And when you go to the silence, when you get to that place within you, you start to trust in it, Marcy. It starts to become a friend to you, and you really feel like you're with God. And then the most bizarre things begin to happen. I know that I am participating in the act of creation, and that I can bring into this world virtually anything that I put my attention on, as long as I'm not doing it for me. In other words, for the me being my ego, this thing that we call Wayne, that if I can just get past that and then I can attract it. So I can attract all the love in the universe. I can attract all the abundance in the universe. And it's like, like Tilopa said, you've heard me say it, because you sound like you've listened to me before. Have a mind that's open to everything.
And attached to nothing.
And attached nowhere, attached to nothing. And it's like I have no attachments any longer. I have no attachments to any of my stuff. It's all, I give it all away. I have no attachment to my children. I have no attachment to anyone or anything. I just want to be a being of love. And when I'm in that place, I sense that while we live in a world that has certain kinds of things going on, at the same moment that we are living in that world, that all of these things are going on, there's a world that lives in us. And this world that lives in us, that world is a world that I just trust. And that world says to me, when you can get past the dichotomies, the beginnings and the ends, the ups and the downs, the rights and the wrongs, the males and the females, the goods and the bads, when you can get past all of that and go to this place of oneness, which I only know how to do in meditation, the minute I come out of it, I'm right back into this thing versus that thing, and up and down and all of that. But when I'm in that, I just know that that's what I was like before I showed up into this world of being. And that's what I'm headed back to. To know, as T.S. Eliot said, to know that world, to know where we came from for the very first time. We shall not cease from exploration. But at the end of all of our exploring will be to return to the place from which we originated, and to know it for the first time, and to know it. And I just know it. That's all I can say is I just know it, and I've learned it in the void. That's where I've learned it.
Let me read to you one of the great ladies, one of the great writers ever. Her name's Lillian Smith, and her writing is so profound. Well, this is what she says. She says, to pray, it is so necessary and so hard. Hard not because it requires intellect or knowledge or a big vocabulary or special techniques, but because it requires of us humility. And that comes, she said, I think, from a profound sense of one's brokenness and one's need. Not the need that comes and causes us to cry, get me out of this trouble, quick, please, God, but the need that one feels every day of one's life, even though one does not acknowledge it, to be related to something bigger than oneself. It comes out of our brokenness. The need to be related to something bigger than our puny little egos, to be connected, and that's a sense of brokenness, broken from spirit, broken from the return trip. Tao is the way of return. It's returning to the place from which we started and know it for the first time. And she says, but the need that one feels every day of one's life, even though one does not acknowledge it, to be related to something bigger than oneself, something more alive than oneself, something older and something not yet born that will endure through time. That was Lillian Smith writing in the introduction to The Journey. That out of this need to overcome this brokenness comes the afternoon of our life. Comes this time when we say, my connection to God, to Source, to Tao, to universal mind, to spirit, to that from which I originated, from which I can never be disconnected, which is who and what I am, my own divinity. It's never too late to teach that. And it's never too early to teach that. You can do it with your babies. This is why I've got two little children's books, two wonderful children's books. One's called Incredible You, and the other one just came out. It's called Unstoppable Me. So now we enter this thing, this change, this something takes over for us. And this thing called a quantum shift or a quantum change in our hearts takes over. And once it does, there's no going back. So now, well, let me describe first the quantum shift, the quantum change. When you make this shift, when a quantum change takes place, when it takes place and you move from the number one priority of your life being to get good grades, to fit in, to be a good daughter or a good mother, or to fit in with your family business or whatever it is that it might be, when that shift has completed itself and you now realize that there's something greater, something grander, something more profound. In a book called Quantum Change, they suggest that when these things come into your life and the shift is on, that the experiences are so dramatic that they often are accompanied by voices that we hear and an energy that we experience in our life that no one else knows. Here's a friend of mine. His name's Bill Wilson. He was the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he said these words about this, it's called the mystical type of quantum change. He said, "My depression deepened unbearably, and finally it seemed to me as though I were at the bottom of the pit. I still gagged badly at the notion of a power greater than myself." That's the ego at work. "But finally, just for a moment, the last vestige of my proud obstinacy was crushed. All at once, I found myself crying out, 'If there is a God, let him show himself. I am ready to do anything. And suddenly, the room lit up with a great white light. I was caught up into an ecstasy which there are no words to describe. It seemed to me, in the mind's eye, that I was on a mountain and that a wind, not of air, but of spirit, was blowing. And then it burst upon me that I was a free man.'" A wind of spirit.
I did a film called My Greatest Teacher, which was a story of my relationship and trying to find my father. And it turns out that what he did when I was a young boy and all of his horrible, crass behavior and so on were really the impetus for my being able to reach to higher and higher levels. And while you're reviewing that and looking at that, of coming at it from a place of brokenness, come at it from a place of completeness.
I've always believed that if you follow the herd, you'll end up stepping in poop, because the herd leaves a lot of stuff behind, and you find out you walk through your whole life and wonder why this stuff's on your shoes, it smells all the time, your life isn't working, and very often it's because you are not listening to the inner spirit that tells you exactly what you're here for and why you were here. And why you showed up. I was in Philadelphia doing an hour there for QVC, and I got an invitation to go to the art museum there in Philadelphia, the Museum of Art. And I went over there, and I spent about 3 hours going through 7 or 8 rooms, all filled with paintings of this very famous Spanish artist who died in 1989. And here was a man who had come into the world. He had this capacity for painting. It was a talent that he brought with him, that he showed up here with. And yet he had a father who was very adamant about the fact that he shouldn't be painting, and did everything that he possibly could to dissuade him from it, ridiculed him, told him that he would never speak to him again, that he would disown him, that he would have nothing to do with him if he were to continue to do this painting. And I was thinking, if this artist, whether you like his art or don't like his art, and some of it is phenomenal because he became this huge activist back in the 1930s when during the Spanish Revolution, the Civil War in Spain, with Franco and so on, he took a side there on the side of the people, and his painting reflected it. Then when World War II came along, he had some of his most famous paintings were the anti-Nazi, anti-Hitler kind of things that were really expressed in art, the rage that he felt about what was happening in Europe and around the world. And I was thinking that I must have looked at, 500 or 600 of his paintings and sculptures and work of art, and if he had listened to his father, if he had listened to somebody else, and done what the herd or what everybody else, what he was being told to do, that we wouldn't have this great artwork to look at. And then I got to thinking about almost all of the great work that's ever appeared in the history of man, whether it's artwork or music compositions or
great buildings and so many of our terrific writing and so on. And including my own life. I mean, I had many, many people who told me that you can't make a living writing, and you should go out and get yourself a real job. In fact, my own mother, who's going to be 90 on her next birthday, keeps asking me when I'm going to get a job, and I'm 64 years old. But there's always been an inside of me, an inner calling that said, this is what you're here for and what you have to do, and you can't do it by being employed by somebody else. I've felt and I've said many times that you'll never have complete and total freedom as long as you're working for somebody else. I mean, it's like there is an element of knowing that you are in charge of your own destiny, and that you set your own time schedule, and you dress the way you want to dress, and you show up the way you want to, and that we all have the capacity within us to do it, and many, of course, don't opt for that. The really creative people out there in the world who've been great contributors in this world are people who've listened to that inner voice and said, look, you know what, I'm going to paint anyway. And it turns out that Salvador Dali spent many, many years being on the outs with his father, didn't even speak to him, and much of his rage toward his father was reflected in his earliest paintings back in the 1920s and early 30s. So I think there's something really to be said for listening to what it is that you know you're here for. That's what I call being in spirit or inspired. And when you're inspired, everything seems to work for you, and you're not doing what other people have dictated you to do. And I'm always mindful of the people who have, it's always intrigued me in my talks, the people who really get to the top in any field, whether it's, athletics, or whether it's sport, or whether it's, artwork, or whether it's composition, or anything. It doesn't make any difference what it might be. The people who are considered to be they often will tell you that they had a calling inside of themselves, and they listened to it, and other people attempted to dissuade them. I can't tell you how many people, I got a D on a paper from a teacher that I had at Wayne State University when I was a freshman. I was 22 years old. I'd already spent 4 years overseas in the service, and had been all around the world. And I came back and was just starting out as a freshman in college. And my freshman English teacher's name was Joachim Ries, R-I-E-S. I don't know if he's still around. And the reason I got the D was because he said the writing, the quality of the writing was too good for a freshman English student. You must have plagiarized this. I can't find out where it is, but I don't accept that you could have written this. And by that time, he didn't even know that I'd already written a novel, and I had written probably 150 essays, and had been doing writing since I was a young boy. And if I would have listened to him and been told that you can't be a writer, or you're not, and I can even remember, even when I was much younger than that, being told that I shouldn't be spending so much of my time reading and writing, and I should be out there doing other things. But you have to listen. You have to listen to that inner voice.